Welcome back to Ion Foxborough. I'm Chris Mason here with Mark Daniels. We got our second look at the Patriots this spring. They had their second open OTA on Wednesday afternoon. Mark, is there anything that caught your eye right out the chute?
Well, let's start with what everyone wants to hear about, Chris. It's the quarterback situation. Drake May is still taking reps like he's the number three guy on the depth chart. I don't think that's what most people want to hear. But I'll say this. I think Jacoby Brissett, the Patriots are planning on him being the starter right now, and the competition will unfold in August. And if Drake is much better than Jacoby, he'll start. But it seems pretty obvious to me that like with Jacoby getting all the first reps and everything, that they're very comfortable with him going forward as the starting quarterback. But also, I thought Jacoby Brissett played well yesterday in practice, and I had this hot take with Karen after practice that I'll share here that. I think if Jacoby Brissett ends up starting for the Patriots, he could be your best post Tom Brady quarterback in New England, because like I think he's just solid enough. I don't think he's going to do too many boneheaded things. He's kind of athletic. He has a big arm. Like he'll be better in the pocket than Cam Newton. He should be better than both Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. So I don't think that's as crazy of a hot take as it sounds, is that hey, Jacoby Brissett could be your best quarterback since Tom Brady. You know what a lot of teams would want to go for, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for the Patriots. But I like what they're doing. Jacoby as the potential starter, and they're bringing along Drake May slowly.
Yeah, I agree that I think Jacoby's probably, even just watching him at these camp practices, is probably the best quarterback they've had since Tom, where like it's not flashy, it's not fluid, but he makes the throws he needs to make. He's pretty accurate with it. And the quarterback play has been so low the last couple of years here that I think seeing a competent quarterback back there, like an NFL caliber quarterback, is kind of a change of pace. But I mean, the thing that caught my eye and jumped out to me right away is just like Bailey Zappi's still in front of Drake May in these rotations. It's getting pretty eye roll worthy. So Joe Milton wasn't at practice for reasons still undisclosed. I'm not sure. They only had three quarterbacks yesterday. There was one team period where everyone, starters from both teams, offense, defense, went to one field. First quarterback up, Jacoby Brissett. Totally fine with that, right? Like, okay, you should be. Second quarterback up, Bailey Zappi. Third quarterback up, Jacoby Brissett. Fourth quarterback up, Drake May finally gets in there. Fifth quarterback, Jacoby Brissett. Sixth quarterback, Bailey Zappi again. So not only is Zappi repping in front of him, he's getting more reps in a period like this. And I think we both know that like 1 month, maybe like by the time training camp starts, I don't expect Bailey Zappi to be on this roster. Jerod Mayo has essentially indicated that he wants to carry three. Albert Breer reported that. Jerod in a press conference with us said, "Yeah, we'll rock with four in the spring, but when training camp comes, we need to pare the roster down." I think it's like it's not just written on the wall; it's like spray painted on the lighthouse who the odd man out is going to be. Because Jacoby Brissett is looking like your starter right now. You drafted two rookies. You're not going to cut them a month or two after drafting them. It's Bailey Zappi. So why are these reps still being distributed this way?
Yeah, it's a great question. Bailey Zappi has more experience, and right now it seems like across the board that the Patriots are playing veteran players over rookies. I don't think there are any rookies really playing over veteran players right now, and maybe that's just Gerod's philosophy to make them earn it. What will
But
concern me
there are rookie wideouts though that are getting into that second group with Zappi already.
a little bit, yeah. What would concern me though is that this rotation stayed the same in August because when pads come on and real football starts is really where you want to see Drake May make incremental improvements. Now, Drake has things he needs to work on with his footwork. I'd say even with his throwing motion, it's a little elongated for my liking. He's learning a new playbook. I mean, Jacoby Brissett told us after yesterday's practice that like Drake admitted there weren't this many play calls in college. And Drake even said he hasn't taken too many under the center snaps. And on top of that, the way he drops back in shotgun under Alex Van Pelt is different than how he did it at UNC. So there's a ton of new stuff for Drake May to learn. Chris, the best way to learn it is just to do it. So
Right.
I agree with you. I think at the end of the day, the Patriots would be best rolling with Jacoby Brissett, Drake May, and Joe Milton. The only way Bailey Zappi sticks is if the Patriots, for whatever reason, want him to be the backup quarterback and want Drake May just to take a sort of redshirt backseat year, basically be the number three. I don't subscribe to that same notion because again, in August, he needs to rep more than Bailey Zappi because he's the future. He just signed a big contract as the number three overall pick. He's a blue chip, probably I'd say the highest I don't know, you want to say like in terms of like highly regarded prospect, maybe in New England since what, Drew Bledsoe? Like, you know what I mean? Like Drake May has that potential to be a franchise quarterback, and the Patriots want to do it the right way, which is why Jacoby Brissett's leading off on all these drills and they're taking their time with them. I get it, but I agree with you that come August, they really need to hammer home with him some of these drills. And I think the biggest point as to the reason why come the regular season, man, you're not really developing rookies. Practices is about game planning. And for those who don't know, the Patriots will have 3 practices a week and they split up like first down, second downs, third downs, red zone. Each day has sort of a different playbook of what they're going to prepare for when, playing the Jets, Dolphins, what have you. So you're not really like developing guys in practice in the fall. You're developing them in the off season. So I agree with you, man. I think they need to get that figured out by August. And I agree that Billy Zappi's the odd man out.
Right. And to be clear, I don't think either of us have any sort of problem with Jacoby Brissett starting these drills and getting those reps. And once more, like Jacoby Brissett is the most familiar with this offense because it's the Cleveland offense and he's played in it before. So it's not even one of those things where it's like, oh, well, Zappy's out there to give the other guys a better look because he already knows this offense. And no, it's a totally new offense for him too, because
Yeah.
he's been in New England's offense the last 2 years. So it doesn't make sense. But one bright spot from this practice I thought was Javon Baker. The rookie wideout had what I thought was the catch of the day. It was a ball from Jacoby Brissett going down the left sideline. He jumped up over Marco Wilson, tapped both feet inbounds, and it was one of those catches that like got the guys so ramped up that Ramondre Stevenson like sprinted down the field to congratulate him. And I think you can learn a lot from watching what teammate reactions are like at this time of year, where it's like
Yeah.
I think sometimes media can make molehills into mountains and like you'll see guys that just aren't reacting. But in this instance, when Ramondre is running down the field to be like, that was a sick catch, I think that's a pretty good sign.
And it's also something we haven't seen from many Patriots wideouts in a long time. Like how many guys like go up and moss another cornerback? Like I'm honestly thinking right now, and I honestly don't know the answer. Like there's been some good moments from receivers over the years, but what Javon Baker did, and he did it twice, Chris. He had another play where he was covered tightly by a cornerback. There was a safety over the top, and he leapt up over both of them. And by the time he hit the ground, he like sprinted forward into the end zone, and he was hyped with that. And another receiver came over and celebrated them. So like Javon Baker made 2 highlight reel catches. I think he showed in that like instance, that tiny flash, that he could be a deep threat guy that the Patriots desperately, desperately need. And I'll pinpoint another catch that impressed me with him. It was 11 on 11s, and he caught almost like a screen pass. And dude, when he took off, he showed speed that I didn't realize he had.
Yeah.
He had this ability after the catch, and like he looked like one of the fastest players on the field after that screen pass. I'm like, wow, kid has speed. He can go up and get the ball other opposing cornerbacks. Like there's a reason I think to be excited about him, which but also the caveat is there's no pads on. This isn't real football. He has to carry it over into August. But I thought just an outstanding practice for Javon Baker. But there was another receiver who had an outstanding practice, Chris, and this name might make people's eye rolls. It's Tyquan Thornton, and I thought Tyquan Thornton and Javon Baker were the 2 best receivers in the field yesterday. Tyquan also had 2 big pass plays, and this was from Drake May in 7-on-7s. One was about like 30, 35 yards, and another one he had basically had a safety covering and was Kyle Duggar, and he went up and got it, but Tyquan Thornton is fighting for a job, and he looked like a guy on Wednesday that understood that. And I thought it was a really, a good step for Tyquan if he's going to make the team. But of course, with him, Chris, it's not about like just flashing; it's about staying healthy.
Right. It's about sustaining it. And I think that deep ball to Taekwon was probably Drake's best throw of the day, where that thing was dropped in the bucket. But yeah, I mean, it's like you said a minute ago, with the caveat that they're not in pads at this point, right? Like Taekwon's not facing press coverage or anything like that. I mean, so take it with a grain of salt. But this is what you want to see from him. This is what you need to see from him right now. He needs to go wire to wire this summer to make the 53. He needs to be productive the whole time. So catching 4 balls in team drills the first day, 3 from Drake May, that's a great, or the second day, that's a great start for him. Like he needs to
Yeah.
keep building momentum because even in these practices in years past, he's kind of been a ghost at times, right? So I think he needs to get out. He needs to start fast and he needs to stay fast. And so I think this is a really positive step for him.
Yeah, and like another thing here too, not to downplay it, but the Patriots are playing with backup cornerbacks. Jonathan Jones isn't a full participant. Marcus Jones isn't a full participant. And honestly, I don't think Christian Gonzalez is a full
Yeah.
participant either. So really, the Patriots' 3 starting cornerbacks aren't out there. That being said, names I haven't mentioned or we haven't mentioned: Juju Smith-Schuster, KJ Osborne, Jalen Polk, those guys haven't flashed. I thought Demario Douglas has had some nice catches. He's very his skill set's obvious. He's very good after the catch and he's like very shifty. But like I haven't seen flashes from Juju or Jalen Polk, and that's your highest paid receiver and your top drafted receiver. I'd like to see more from them, Chris. This is called passing camp for a reason. It's where receivers and sometimes cornerbacks they shine because really we're not analyzing pass rushers, offensive linemen, the run game. It's kind of impossible when there's no pads on, but it's time for receivers to get separation. And I just really haven't seen that from Jalen Polk or Juju Smith-Schuster yet. And I'm not like sounding the alarms. There's a long way to go and things will change when pads come on. But I just want to see more from, again, your highest drafted receiver and your highest paid receiver.
Right. And especially in these 7-on-7 drills, right? There's no pass rush speeding the quarterback up. It's just on these guys to get open. And one thing that has jumped out to me is that through it's two OTAs, but Juju Smith-Schuster still isn't really getting open, and he said he's 100% now. He feels way better. He doesn't look much more explosive thus far. Maybe it'll be different when the pads come on, but that's something that's jumped out to me too.
And the Patriots, they have room for five or six guys. And like ideally, you think Kendrick Bourne's healthy. KJ Osborne has, $3 million and they brought him in. You have two rookie receivers in Demario Douglas. There's five. Now, if Taekwon flashes, and also they've been having Taekwon play on special teams in practice. I think like the gunner stuff. So like if you
Yeah.
can show to have, special teams ability, plus, he shines, maybe he makes the roster. But also, like, I don't think we can even discount someone like Jalen Reagor. I mean, the guy returned a kickoff for a touchdown last year in Buffalo. Like, he could be your kickoff returner this year, and maybe he's your, sixth receiver. So, like, I'd say, like, in terms of like competition, there's so much competition at the receiver group. And really, it's not because they're all great, Chris. It's because a lot of them, let's be honest, they're kind of lumped together. They're like, okay, you know what I mean? It's like a fine group, but like a lot could change in August.
A lot of number threes. A lot of number threes in that group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but you kind of have the luxury too. Like if Taekwon plays really well this summer and forces Gerod's hand, like because you're not going to carry as many core special teamers, you can carry a six wideout if you really want one, and then you try and like give him some special teams value, as you just mentioned with him working as a gunner. But one place we saw some more rotation was guard. I mean, people on the pod love the guard talk, but I think that's going to be sneaky one of the biggest, like most competitive spots this summer. What do you read into the guard rotation?
I'll be honest, I have no idea who's going to start week one. And like to put it this way, like we've seen City So, who I thought would be the right guard, play left guard and OTAs, and he wasn't there yesterday. So like at left guard, there was, Michael Jordan, the NFL version of Michael Jordan. He started in the past, I believe, for Cincinnati. Antonio Mafi was playing right guard. But the previous OTA was Nick Leverett playing right guard. Now you also have Layden Robinson, their fourth round pick, playing right guard. There's a lot, and I mean a lot of moving pieces here. So like your left guard could be City So. It could also be a veteran by the name of Michael Jordan. Your right guard could also be City So. It could be Layden Anderson. It could be Nick Leverett. It could be Antonio Mafi. Like there are so many moving pieces to guard, Chris. I have like other than City So, I feel confident saying City So will start at one of those spots, but I'm not entirely sure who's going to be their starting guards this year, which it makes it interesting for us. I don't know if people are pumped about guard play. I am. I think, it's an interesting competition.
Well, it's fascinating because right now I think there's only two slam dunk starters on the offensive line where you know that Mike Onwenu is going to be at right tackle and David Andrews is going to be at center. Beyond
Yeah.
that, I think everything is kind of up for grabs right now, and that will make for a fascinating camp this summer. And yeah, even the left tackle thing, we've hit it on it a bunch on this pod, but Chuks Okorafor and Caden Wallace, hopefully one of them can make the flip to left. But if they can't, maybe it's Calvin Anderson, maybe it's Vidarian Lowe, maybe it's go on down the list. They have a bunch of bodies, throwing a lot of darts at the board. I don't know that any are going to hit the bullseye.
Yeah, I mean, I think they hope that Chuks Okorafor will be their starting left tackle and they can develop Caden Wallace. Like again, if you can take your time with the guy and start a veteran for 1 year, that's great. Go for it. They're not winning the Super Bowl this year. This year is about drafting and developing in the hopes that like Caden Wallace and Layden Robinson, hell, Drake May, Javon Baker, and Jalen Polk, that they all develop, even if they're not starting. And that's really what this team needs to do. You need to hit on your draft picks, man, if you're going to turn this thing around.
So yesterday's OTA, there also was one surprise visitor who I think we both did a double take, right? Like I saw him walking across the far field and was like, is this like a Pavlov's dog thing? Like I think that's Steve Belichick, but I feel like I just think that's Steve Belichick because I've seen Steve Belichick out here so many times. Nope. Was in fact Steve Belichick who had come to watch practice, defense coordinator at Washington now. He was watching up in the bleachers with Ivan Fears for a while. Mark, what'd you make of Steve being there?
Jerod Mayo is opening the doors to everyone, and that includes Bill Belichick's, son. We also talked to Brian Belichick yesterday, and really point blankly asked him, like, is it awkward that you're here because your dad and brother aren't? Like, why did you return? Was it tough? And what Brian Belichick relayed was that like him and his wife Callie had a baby. They had a baby girl this off season. And he wanted to stay in the area. And when Gerard offered him a chance to return to the staff, he jumped at it. I mean, it must be a bit awkward. I mean, his dad has been replaced by a head coach who is doing things very differently in terms of like how he approaches the media and how he handles his players. But Brian Belichick is, as Gerard said, has been a true professional. And I think, and speaking of true professional, it's what Gerard is, right? It's like Steve Belichick wants to come back. Yeah. I mean, Gerard and Steve were actually pretty close. I mean, they were basically co-defensive coordinators the last handful of years. Steve called the plays, but Gerard drew him up in the classroom. So I think it's a good thing. I mean, obviously Gerard also brought in Tony Dungy the other day. I mean, kind of like a rival to the Patriots back in the day with the Colts, but with Gerard, it's about welcoming in all different people who have different opinions than his, and it is a little different. Not that Bill Belichick didn't bring people in, but like I don't think Bill Belichick would have brought in, say, like Wes Welker because they didn't like each other. You know what I mean? Like there were some people who were on that list with Bill that you would not expect to see at a practice. I would include Tony Dungy in
Yeah.
that. Seeing Steve Belichick show up at practice just made me like sort of realize, oh yeah, things are just a lot different under Jerod Mayo.
Yeah, I think Tony Dungy showing up at practice is probably like as firm a sign that the Belichick era is over as you're gonna find. Like those two competed for such a long time, were like pretty fierce rivals, and now Gerard brings him in. But I think like that's a big part of what Gerard's trying to do is just pick everybody's brain, like anybody's brain that he thinks he can learn something from. And I think Dungy really signifies that. You bring in this legendary Colts coach who was like had these wars with the Patriots, but now he thinks he can learn from them. He talked about how Dungy has like built people up, built relationships, done all this stuff. And if Gerard thinks he can learn from him, hey, why not?
Yeah, it's a new era in New England, and Gerard has to do it his way. Like we've seen too many times with past Belichick assistants, you try to be Bill Belichick, you're gonna fail. Josh McDaniels and Bill O'Brien and Matt Patricia, a lot of these guys just haven't been able to do it. Like there's one Bill Belichick for a reason, right? He's a legendary coach who like came up in an era of football where like you could be really mean and really harsh to young players, and they would accept it. But like people have changed. We've even seen it with younger players. Younger players have changed, and the way coaches talk to them has also changed. I mean, add in like social media. I think in some ways people are more sensitive because they're seeing things that people are saying about them on the internet, and that wasn't always the case. And it certainly wasn't the case when Bill Belichick took over. They're really, Twitter and Instagram weren't really relevant. But now with Jerod Mayo, he's kinder, but also, he's going to be his own guy, and I like that. And I think if there's one thing that makes me optimistic about Jerod Mayo is that he is doing it his own way. Like don't get me wrong, I think the Patriots defense will still be like the Bill Belichick defense, and that's smart. But the way he goes about doing his job, he's going to be himself, and I think that's where a lot of other assistant coaches failed.
Agreed. But all right, that's our pod, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you further on down the trail.